Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the basic fundamentals of economics because once you understand economics, everything else, economic systems, then government, then comparing governments, all falls into place. So, what is economics essentially about? Is economics really about money? And of course, we've established earlier on, economics is not about money. That is just a fabrication. Um, Finance is about money. Business involves money, but economics is not about money. All right, so get that out of your head. The sooner you get rid of that, better off we're going to be. Economics, what is it? Well, Friedrich August von Hayek says the curious task of economics is to demonstrate to men how little they really know about what they can imagine that they can design. And what he's saying here is that, look, everybody has these grand ideas, but what they don't realize is that every idea deals with trade offs. And so, what economics is about is the concept of choice. We are studying people, ladies and gentlemen. We're studying how they interact, how they make choices individually, and how that builds societies. Okay. So, at its core, economics is the study of how people make choices to deal with the concept of scarcity. Now, what is scarcity? Well, scarcity deals with questions like this. Why does Okotime provide better service than AT&T? Why is housing so expensive in California? Why doesn't everyone in the world simply get water for free? Why does the average farm worker make $22 an hour while the average NBA player makes $114,300 an hour? And why doesn't everyone work towards alleviating climate change? And the answer is scarcity, because there are limited resources to fulfill unlimited wants and needs. Whether this is globally, there are limited resources and everybody wants stuff. Whether it's locally, when you wake up, you want all these things, but you have limited resources to fulfill them. So the entire scope of the course is how different cultures and societies deal with the concept of scarcity. And that is what economics is, the study of how people make choices to deal with the concept of scarcity. Now, we have to understand that scarcity impacts everyone. Just because you are wealthy does not mean you have no impacts from scarcity. You simply have different impacts of scarcity. You still have wants and needs and limited resources. You just happen to be wealthier. And some of those wants and needs will change. But the deal is, scarcity exists everywhere and impacts everyone. There is no one who is not impacted by the concepts of scarcity. Now, we've already established also a price is simply a measurement of value. That means that it measures scarcity. And so, therefore, the higher the value of something, the higher the price. The price reflects how much society values something. Can governments like raise and lower prices? Sure, they can, but only at the margin, meaning only at the edges, only have really smaller impacts. All right. So the higher the value, the higher the price. And the lower the value of something, that signifies the lower the price. Now, scarcity and value are obviously connected. The more something is scarce, the higher the value, and thus the higher the price. So the more scarcity, larger value, larger price. And the other side, the less the scarcity, the lower the value and the lower the price. These are fundamentals here. And so if you understand why prices go up or down, why people value different things, it's because it's either less scarce or more scarce. So then what makes things more scarce equaling a higher price? Well, pretty simple. If less of something is available, or people want more of something, or both at the same time. So if Taylor Swift tickets, there are X number of Taylor Swift tickets. Those tickets don't automatically magically reappear out of thin air. So you have a finite amount of something available. At the same time, there is an explosion of people that want to go to a Taylor Swift concert. So you have basically a massive scarcity problem with Taylor Swift tickets. That's why they're thousands of dollars. What makes something less scarce, creating a lower price? Well, there's more of something available. People want less of something or both at the same time. All these things create lower prices simply because they're less valuable, because they are less scarce. So, scarcity is the fundamental problem of all of economics. And it's the fundamental problem, the idea that people have been competing for resources throughout thousands of years. Okay. So, prices impact people's choices. whether it's food, water, housing, climate change, schools, war, entertainment, education. You know, people make choices based on these things. Ultimately, you can say, wow, you know what? We should all be riding trains, and because trains can be cleaner and da 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 da. But if the price of a train ticket is really expensive, people are just going to say, I'm going to drive my car. If the price of trains is zero and they go to the town they want to go to, that's going to help alleviate people's choices. But prices matter, and prices are the number one thing that drives people to make a choice to deal with scarcity. That's it. That's what we're talking about here in economics. All right. Now, for the course in the first semester, you're going to learn 6 core rules for economics. And we're going to start with number 1. And by the way, economics is known as the dismal science, as we will explain later on. Rule number 1 is this: people act within their own self-interest. Full stop, period. People act within their own self-interest. Understand now, self-interest is an action taken that creates a personal benefit. It is not like a mean thing. People act to survive. They get their needs and wants met. Okay. And this is where Adam Smith, which is the great economist slash philosopher, it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we'd expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own self-interest. We address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self-love, and never talk to them of our own necessities, but of their advantages. Analyze that quote. You're going to see 2 different ideas of self-interest at play here. And we'll talk about this in class, but analyze that and see that, look, people do things based on their self-interest, not because like they are just they like to give. Okay. And understand that concept of self-interest is different all over the place, everywhere, whether it's a community, whether it's a state, whether it's a country. Different people have different wants and needs and different self-interests. So what is this right here? Okay. Well, if you were to tell me, I'd say that's soda. Okay. But the thing is that when you think about it, it's not even like a lot of people want soda and soda is available. But do you realize that the communication of the word soda is different depending on where you are in the country? So we call them sodas or soft drinks. When you start to get to the South, everything is a Coke. Like when somebody says, hey, do you want a Coke? And then they give you a Sprite, that's not like unusual because a Coke is soda. And then up here in the northern part of the country, everybody calls it a pop. Hey, do you want a pop? Now, these are people communicating the same thing using totally different vernacular. Their cultures are wildly different, but they all have wants and needs with limited amounts of resources. And this change is awesome and dynamic, but it does create challenges. And if we wanted to get into something like even language, the percentage of people that speak Spanish at home, this is a monumental amount. Almost a third of Californians speak Spanish at home. Same with Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Florida, and Texas. That's not bad. That's dynamic. By the way, learn 2 languages. That makes you so much more marketable and actually makes you a whole lot smarter. But what this does is that like wants and needs become different. Like if people have to learn a second language, it means they can't be doing something else because they're learning a second language. And you're starting to see other cultures start to come into play here. And sometimes those cultures help amplify, like the United States, it is a melting pot. And a lot of these cultures that have come to this country, what they've done is they've changed almost entirely for the better the concept of what it means to be an American. But over time, the wants and needs of all these different cultures, whether it starts with the Irish or the Germans, and then the Jews and the Italians, and the next wave of immigrants, Chinese, Japanese, and then Mexican and Central American, what that does is that your wants and needs start to shift and change over time, and it creates new complexities and new issues of scarcity. And we can even break it down farther and just talk about states. Other than English or Spanish, what is the 3rd most common spoken language? And this is going to bring in another aspect of culture. Like in California, it's Mandarin by a lot, by the way. And then, by the way, you know what number 4 is? I did not know this. Tagalog, which is like a Filipino dialect. Most people don't realize that there was a mass exodus after the Vietnam War to Houston, Texas. And so Vietnamese is number 3. And these cultures, again, all these different groups, it's not negative. It's that you have different people with different values that are trying to compete for scarce resources. And then we bring it to comparative government. We have 7 countries here. Okay. We have, if you look at a family from the United States versus a family from the UK versus a family from Russia versus a family from Iran versus a family from Nigeria versus a family from Mexico versus a family from China, they all are going to have different wants and needs. But around the globe, there are scarce resources and there are different cultures and there are different values and different ideals. And all these groups are trying to create different systems that all they're trying to do is figure out how to meet as many people's wants and needs as possible with the scarce resources that are available. So, at its fundamental level, what we're talking about over the course of the entire class, for the whole year, is we're just talking about how do different people deal with scarcity, whether it's you in your individual life, whether it's the school or the town. We're studying the choices of states, countries, governments, you name it. Economics is about the study of choice. Economics is about how people make decisions in regards to the concept of scarcity. See you next time.